Let's see, Dr. Stein. I think you got up to yesterday.
The top of Lamed Ches. Sorry, I couldn't go further.
V'yishmi menu shevi. Amar Rav Shaman bar Abba. Amar Rav Yochanan, right?
Somewhere around there.
Does that make sense? Naftali? Okay.
I'm walking.
Sorry. Okay. Thank Hashem. That's what I was learning Torah every day. In this Chassav learning, we should have the basic English immediately. Sorry. Okay. We're dealing with here an Eved, means a slave, a Canaanite slave, that's not by its original owner. He is captured or something like that. He's getting redeemed from captivity. The question is, what's the status now when he gets out of captivity? So the Mishnah said, it's an opinion of the Tanakama. The Mishnah says that it depends why the person redeemed him. If he redeemed him to be a slave, then he's going to be a slave. If he redeemed him to be a free person, then he's going to be free. And Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, he's always a slave. Got a machlekes, Abaye and Rava, what the machlekes is. Machlekes, what the machlekes is. Abaye said, the machlekes is all this machlekes. If he's automatically a slave, always, or if he goes free, depending on the intention, that's discussing before the original owner gave up hope. It's lifnei years, before the original owner gave up hope. So if the original owner didn't give up hope, so then why should we say that if the person who's redeeming him goes free because he had intention to get him free, belongs to the first owner? What does he have the rights to do? So we said that was a special institution so that people should go and redeem slaves. We're afraid people won't redeem them when they're taken into captivity. We're talking about redeeming them from captivity, not just as a. We think that people would just leave them there. So in order to encourage people to redeem them, because they are partially Jewish, they're supposed to be redeemed. In order to redeem them, we say that they go free. And people will redeem them faster if they're going to go free. Because they're going to be free people. There's actually redeeming a real.
Would be if that even works for them. Therefore,
that would be a bigger incentive. Yeah. Here they're doing it as a you see it's before the act of kindness.
Is that really a Canaanite slave to a yid is half a.
Yeah. Rabba says that the machlekes was after Yesh. Rabba said the machlekes was after the owner gave up hope. Now you have the question the other way. So why should he be a slave? Rabba explained he's a slave because we don't want slaves to run over to some gangsters and say, capture me, and that way I'll be able to go free. So we say you can't do that. You're going to go back to being a slave if you do that. Okay. Anyway, now the Gemara says, "Amar Rav Shaman bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan." Rav Shaman bar Abba.
Well, that's what happened in the Civil War. Before the Civil War, a lot of slaves went up north and they would be freed. I think.
Oh, yeah. Is that what happened?
Unless they made a law. I think they made a law.
Usually freed. They wouldn't be returned. Slavery?
So Shaman Barabba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Eved Shabarach. Okay, we're talking about, it's missing one slight detail in this case. It says a slave that runs away Mibeis Hasurim from imprisonment. No, we're talking about that he was captured. It's not by his original owner. He was captured, and from his captors who were holding him in prison, he then runs away. So Yatzel L'Cheirus, Rabbi Yochanan says he goes free. Not only does he go free, Al Shekayfinis Rabbi because of the get Shechrer. He forced the master to write for him a deed of manumission that he should be actually free and permitted to marry a Jewish woman.
Who was captured for ransom?
Probably captured for ransom. Now he's running out of the captives. Okay, so far so good. But what's the problem? No problem. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Benka in Star Mishnah. Benka yishtabed. What happens when a slave gets captured and he gets ransomed? Shimon ben Gamliel says he's automatically goes back to slavery after the ransom. It doesn't matter if the person that ransomed him with the intention that he should be a free person. It doesn't matter if he ransomed him to be a slave. He's always going back to being a slave. And Rabba Bar Bar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, no, there's the emphasis here, that Rabbi Yochanan this is our second statement today from Rabbi Yochanan. First statement was that if he runs, a slave that runs free is free. Second statement of Rabbi Yochanan is that when a slave is taken captive and then ransomed, he goes back to being a slave. And that's Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. And comes along Rabbi Yochanan and says, "Kol makom sheshana Reb Shimon ben Gamliel b'mishnah seino halacha k'maisei." Whenever there's a mishnah that has an opinion of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, halacha follows Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Chutz miyarav tzidin v'rayachin, except for these three cases. Except there's three cases, whatever the three cases are. Our case is not one of them. So therefore, the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. So we have a apparent contradiction between statements of Rabbi Yochanan. One statement of Rabbi Yochanan says that a slave that's taken captive and goes free from captivity is a free man. Other statement is a slave that's taken captive and goes free from captivity is still a slave. So how does that work? That's the Gemara's question.
So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is a Tana.
Shimon Gamliel is the father of Rebbe.
Okay.
Of Rabbi Danas. He's a Tana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then,
Rabbi Yochanan
Bar
is a student of Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan is not Myra.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's generally why we go with the opinion of the Tana as opposed to Myra.
What we're doing here is we're saying, you see, Rabbi Yochanan very often tells us who the halacha is like. The statement in the Gemara, halacha kistam mishnah. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel b'mishnah sena is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. If you look through, I think you're going to find a lot of those halacha k'des, halacha k'dat is Rabbi Yochanan's statements. Right. Rabbi Yochanan was like the big paisek. So he says he's teaching how to learn the Mishnah. And you see this in the Mishnah, you see that in the Mishnah. Oh. So this is, if you get all these rules before you start learning Mishnayos, your approach to the Mishnayos would be different. So the Bartanura pointed out if you use the Bartanura commentary. But there's rules about it. Anyway, what was that? What is the Moscato?
It's called Bartanura.
Oh, Bartanura. I get it. Rabba Bar Bar Chana says the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Allah is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel contradicts another statement of Rabbi Yochanan that a slave goes automatically free. The Gemara explains. Bishlei Mala Abaya. This is an answer. According to Abaya, now remember Abaya was the one that Dr. Stein taught yesterday that the machlekes between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Tanakama was all when the original owner has not yet given up hope of getting his slave back. Slave was captured, taken into captivity, and the original owner still thinks he's going to get it back. So, according to Abaya, that says that was what the case was. It's very easy. Shimon ben Gamliel was talking about the owner did not give up hope. That's the Mishnah. That's the case of the Mishnah. The original didn't give up hope, so he's still a slave. The person that comes into ransom doesn't affect the ownership of the original owner. It's still a slave. And so what was Rabbi Yochanan talking about? The slave that's captured and runs free from his captive gets his freedom. Yeah. Spartacus. So that was Lachir. The original owner didn't think that he's going to get him back. He gave up hope of ever getting him. So that's why he gets freedom, because the original owner disowned him,
Yeah, that's true.
and so in the captors he ran free from. So now he's free. So according to Abaya, we don't really have a contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan's words. However, Rava that says that our Mishnah is talking about after the original owner gave up hope. And nevertheless, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that when he's ransomed, he goes back to being a slave. So how could it be that when he runs free, he's free? It's like he's being ransomed. According to Rava, kasha de Rabbi Yochanan, it's a kasha contradiction in the words of Rabbi Yochanan itself. Amar lach Rava. Rava can answer you. You see, Rava is a little bit later than Rabbi Yochanan. So the contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan would upset Rava's pshat, would upset Rava's interpretation. So Rava is explaining himself so that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have this contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan would ruin Rava's pshat. So Rava says, I can answer you. My pshat is still good. What's the reason why? See, when you go back to how come, according to Rava, according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, how come when the slave gets ransomed, he goes back to being a slave? It was already the original owner gave up hope of getting him back. How does he go back? But the answer is because we don't want slaves to run over to gangsters and say, take me captive,
Right.
and then somehow I'll get free afterwards. We don't want them to do that. So therefore, we always make sure that they go back.
What's the incentive for the master to free his own slave?
The master is never going to free his own slave.
He'll just give
So
up.
he'll give up.
Or
But in order to discourage the slave from doing that, so we say that even if you get ransomed, you still go back to being a slave. So it's not going to help.
he will be slave to the captors.
No, he'll be a slave to the original owner.
That he's just not working for.
Yeah.
It's like so someone pays the ransom that he never has, he never becomes owner of the slave.
Let me ask Dr. Stein.
So we spoke something about once the first owner, the second owner.
Dr. Stein, when he according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, when he gets ransomed, does he go to be a slave of the first owner or a slave of the second of the one that paid the ransom?
I honestly don't remember, but I don't think he ever.
The first one. Goes back to the first.
I think
one.
it always went back to the first one. Correct. Yeah.
Back to the first one. That's what was understood from the Gemara before. Now, what's going to happen now is that the reason for that institution is that he has to go back to being a slave was because we don't want him to run away to do that. Now look at this. Rava says, the whole reason why you said that he goes back to being a slave was because of Chizkiah. Chizkiah was the one that came up with that logic, that if you're going to allow slaves to go free because they were taken captive, then they're going to allow themselves to be taken captive. By Reach Shani, when someone runs away from captives, that's a different story. Why? He risked his own life to get away from captives. If they would catch him, they would kill him. He ran you think he's going to throw himself into the captor's hands directly? You see, we're dealing with a different sort of person. Now, there's different ways of answering the contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan. The way we answered it according to Abaya was that it's talking about if the original owner gave up hope or the original owner didn't give up hope. That's what we can explain Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rava, the way we're explaining Rabbi Yochanan is that there's another variable in this case that we've been ignoring. And that is, was the slave freed from the captors by ransom, or did the slave run away from the captors? And now we're saying that if the slave was ransomed from the captors, then we're afraid that maybe this was an arrangement, that the slave told the captors, take me, you'll get a ransom, and then I'll go free.
Yeah.
And this was like this is a deal they had. But if the slave is running away from the captors, then we're not concerned that there was a deal that they made up beforehand. You take me, and then That's why. How do we know that? Because he risked his life to get out of their hands. He for sure never would have thrown himself into their hands. So with the concern of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, of Chizkiah, that's not when he runs away from the captives. That's only when he's ransomed from the captives. Okay, I'm saying
Is that really the case, though?
Uh,
It seems like a person would find a captor that's easy to run away from, become a captor, and then run away. Like I don't know. It doesn't seem like such a good proof.
Yeah. Okay, Abaya's right. I don't know.
That was his.
Yeah, in the Tanakama. In the Tanakama, correct. Hillel saying that according to Rava, if the first owner gives up hope, the second owner redeems him with the intention of making him a slave, then he becomes a slave of the second owner. That's correct. But that's according to the Tanakama. According to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, though, it goes back to being a slave of the first owner. Yeah. Right? Okay.
He never gets freed.
He never gets freed according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Unless he runs away, according to Rava.
Quick
Okay.
question. We've been learning the last few days about Shemitah.
Yeah.
So a Jew becomes a slave because of money, because of the debt. Does Shemitah affect his status?
Yeah, well, he goes free anyway at Shemitah. Right? Was it 6 years or was it Shemitah?
That's what I'm asking. Right.
I forget. There were a few ways that he goes free. I think one of them was Shemitah.
Mm-hmm.
But then wouldn't stop people from giving loans? The person could just be like, hold up, Shemitah is like in a few weeks. I'm gonna just go and become a slave a few weeks before.
I mean, he's not going to pay back, and he's going to go free. I think maybe you're right. Maybe it was 6 years and not Shemitah. So then it would be affected by what he owes, the money that he owes. I have to look that up. Okay. I'm saying the Shmuel Ishtaboy, the maidservant of Shmuel, is taken captive. Shmuel is the same as Shmuel. Yeah, it's the same. This is Shmuel, right? It's not someone else. Sometimes it's called Marshmallow, sometimes it's called Shmuel. I think it's the same person. You know that kid's comic, Marshmallow, and it's a play on Hebrew. Like Mar means Mr. Shmello. Anyway, Amsei de Marshmuel, the maidservant of Marshmuel Shtaboy, was taken captive. Parkua l'shum amasa b'shadruale. Some people came along and ransomed her and sent her back to Marshmuel. Sholchole, and they sent along a little message. They sent her back with an envelope with a letter inside. Anan Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Sfirlan. We hold like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Therefore, we ransomed her. She goes back to being a slave. At Inami Karabanan Sfirlach. Even if you would hold like the Rabbanan, that would say that it depends why what was the intention at the ransom. Anan l'shem amasa b'kin lanale. We anyways had intention that she should be a slave. She'd be a maidservant. So even if you don't go like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, by Rabbi Yochanan Paskin, you follow the Rabbanan, but anyway, according to the Rabbanan, she's back a slave. The inner Sabbath in the year Shabbat. They understood that this was before Yesh. And that was, according to Abaya, before Yesh. That was the Machlekes. It's not so. La'acha Yesh Shabbat really was after Yesh. It's after Yesh. Now, according to Rava, that's the Machlekes. Shmuel, what did Shmuel do? Not only did he not work her, he did not keep her as a slave, maidservant. He didn't even require her to have a get. Sounds like he's passing like Abaya. Because according to Abaya, once there's years, then she's free. Yeah, Taisa says that clearly. Kabayas really. Okay. What comes out over here? Another. Didn't we say before? Yal Kagam, if we only had a few cases, we go like Abaya. Really died to Begita Lav Milse. 6 cases, yeah. The next line. Okay. Let's see. Shmuel, okay. Shmuel follows his reasoning. Damer Shmuel, because Shmuel holds Hamafkir Avda Yatza Lacheres. Someone that that makes ownerless his slave, the slave goes free. He doesn't require even a document. When would he require a document to go free? Is if he was making him free. But if he makes him ownerless, he goes free even without a document. Shenemar, as it says, Chol Eved Ish Miknas Kesef. Pasuk says, and any slave of a man that's acquired with money, Eved Ish v'lei Eved Isha. Why does it say the slave of a man? That means a slave of a man and not a woman. Ela Eved Sheish Le Rabbi Sheish Le Rishus Le Rabbi Alav. We're talking about a slave that the master has control over him. Kari Eved, such a person is called an Eved. Shein Le Rishus Le Rabbi Alav, in Kari Eved. It has to be Eved Ish. There has to be a master that's able to subjugate the slave. If there's no master there, then he's not considered a slave. Which means that if he's ownerless, then there's no slave.
If he runs away from his master, he's still a slave.
Still a slave. But if the master makes himself not his master, he gives him up, makes him ownerless, then there's no slave left. Slave is only a slave to the master.
He has to give a bill of manumission.
Nothing.
Does that?
According to this, nothing.
So why? Bill
Because that's only when he's not making him ownerless. I mean, yeah, you're right.
You
Yeah, Jonathan is asking a good question. Why do we ever need the document? You can always just let him make him ownerless instead of letting him free. Same thing, basically. It's a much easier way. Taisa's question. Taisa's asking a question.
Yeah.
Always good to say.
Oh, 1 second.
For the same reason, you need a receipt after you pay a debt to prove that so he can prove to others.
That's just a proof.
It's a proof.
No, but why would you ever use a star to the deed of manumission? Not as a proof. The deed of manumission is not a proof. The deed of manumission is like the way you give a get. Get is not a proof. Get is a chalois. Something happens when you give the get.
The Hefker thing sounds very chancy. Who would believe it? Or many, if you give a.
You'd say you do it in front of witnesses. Yeah, making a monolith in front of witnesses. You're good to go. Save the money of the scribe, right?
What's this for say?
I'm not sure. Seems like the fact is correct, but you got to look up a bunch of Gemaras.
It says therefore of despair of treating his maidservant. She was no longer under his control to now hire her.
Right. Okay, next case. Amsi de Rabbi Abba Bar Zutra, Ishtaboy. The maidservant of Rabbi Abba Bar Zutra was taken captive. Parke Yahu Tarmuda L'Shemitza. Some Tarmuda was a non-Jew. Mar Shabbos says the Tarmudai were the people that would sell wood, like wood chips, help people start their fire. They would come around after everyone went home. They would remain in the marketplace after everyone left. People would go home to start the fire. They wouldn't be able to get it started. They would run out to the marketplace to get those chips, the fire starters. What is that?
This is the Hanukkah time to light the Hanukkah candles, right?
Yeah, that's the amount of time that they would hang around the marketplace. So that was the time for the Hanukkah candles to burn. How long, what's the time? The Tichla Rigla the Tarmudai. Till the feet of the Tarmudai aren't there anymore. Anyway, that they were non-Jewish, I don't know, like gypsies or something. They come around and sell little, little stuff.
From the wood.
But yeah, they would overcharge according to this. Yeah, it's the name of a place. It's the name of a place. They came from this place. Anyway, this Talmudai shows up and he marries, he redeems her and he marries her. The money he got from the wood. So Shalcha Leila Didei. They told Rababa Bar Zutra, who was the original owner, says, if you want to do the correct thing, you should send her a deed of manumission. You should set her free. The Gemara says, hey Chidami, what's going on? If he could ransom her from this Talmud, if he could redeem her from the Talmud. So, then why is he not just going to ransom her? I mean, he's not supposed to let her stay by a non-Jew. She's partially Jewish, right? A non-Jewish slave belonging to a Jew went to the mikveh in order to do some mitzvahs. Yeah, this is a maidservant, so there's no bris. I don't know if they have a bris. Don't mean like that they didn't have a bris. If he can't ransom her, so kishad lagita the chirusamahavi. So what does it help by setting her free? What's the difference? She's not free. She's in this guy's hands. What's this, like a theoretical thing? You just send the document as if that's what's it going to affect her? She sets her free, and what's going to happen? She's going to be free? She's not free. She's under the jurisdiction of this guy. What does setting her free do? Gemara says, really, he can ransom her. Even the Meshadla Gita the Chirusa, this was a very practical thing. What would happen is, if he would set her free, then the city people would get together and they would ransom her because they know that she's a free woman. Jewish woman was taken captive. They're going to go and ransom her. If she's a slave, they're going to ignore it that she was taken captive. And now we're trying to ransom her from the Talmudai.
Who exactly is kidnapping this woman?
Doesn't say who.
Us.
Right. Talmudai redeemed her from the captives.
Sounds like the story of Yosef.
It goes to, right.
And they sold it to so-and-so.
They're pirates. They took her captive. Okay. There could be another explanation here. Really weren't able to redeem her. Given the Meshadla Gita Cherusa, Mitzla Ba'Peyam Afrikla. He didn't want to be, this is a really scary statement. He didn't want to, he would, once you set her free, then she becomes Jewish. He'd say, what? I'm going to be married to a Jew? I would never marry a Jew. And he would let her be set free. I'm going to ask a question on this. The master was taught somewhere else, that they would rather have relations with the animal of a Jew than with their own wives. What are you saying? He doesn't want to be married to a Jew? He says, that's only in private when no one knows about it. But in public, that would be embarrassing for him to be married to a Jew. What did Socrates say? Oh, I didn't know. Oh, that was Aristotle. Yeah, Aristotle.
One of those guys.
Yeah.
That's what the Gemara says about it.
It's not the Gemara. With Bilam. Yeah. So in public, this would be an embarrassment for him. Okay. Ahi amsa dahave b'pumpadisa dahavi kamavdi by inchi yisura. There was a maidservant in Pumpadisa.
The last story is finished.
Yeah, last story is finished. Pretty scary statement, though. Right. Okay. There was a maidservant that was in Pumpadisa. David Kamavdi and Shiasura that people were promiscuous behavior with her. She was a maid, a slave. Amar Abaya says he loved Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kol Mishacher Avdi. Everybody say it's not for what it was said by Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. What is this next one? Oh, from the Shia. So, and if not for the fact that he said that anyone that frees a slave violates a positive command, so Habikaifina Leilamara, I would have forced the master because of the Gittin and set her free. You see, if she would be set free, then she would get married, and then her husband would protect her from control her behavior. But like this, she's a maidservant. She's not being controlled. People are sinning with her. So, but there's a problem with setting them free because it says that you're not supposed to set a slave free. Ravina says, Rav Yehuda would agree that over here you're allowed to set her free because there's promiscuous behavior. This would overrides the positive command. But Abaya would say not. Abaya was the one that said, if not for the fact that it's prohibited, I would set her free. He says not. Amar Rav Chanina bar Rav Katina, Amar Rav Yitzchak. Rav Chanina bar Katina says the name of Rav Yitzchak. There was a story of a woman. She was owned by partners. One of the partners set her free. The other partner did not. So she's now half free and half not free. So the rule was, they forced the other master to set her free. And Rav Nachman explained, why did they do that? Because people were misbehaving with her. You see, you may be thinking that there's the Gemara that says Besil Bishamai that they forced the master to set the slave free. That's why over here it does it because Minik Hefker. That Gemara was about a man. A man is obligated to have children. There's a mitzvah of Pru Revu. He's half free, he's half not free. Can't perform the mitzvah. So they forced the other set him free so that she should be able to perform the mitzvah. A woman is not obligated in Pru Revu. She assists the husband in him performing the mitzvah. So you don't have to set the woman free so that she should be able to perform a mitzvah that she was never commanded.
No,
it's a little surprising. Why did we set her free? So that she shouldn't be promiscuous. So, okay, so we set her free because, so here we have a clear statement that you do set her free so that she shouldn't be promiscuous. What was Abaya thinking? Gemara says, over there was a problem. She can't marry a slave, she can't marry a free person. But over here, Abaya was saying that maybe the master could designate her to one of his slaves, and the slave himself would, as a wife, and the slave himself would, it's not really marriage, but the slave himself would guard her and make sure that she doesn't, she's not promiscuous. Gufa, we have a statement that we're going back to analyze. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda said name Shmuel, Kol Meshachter Avdei. Everybody say, anyone that frees a slave, violates a positive command, they have to work for you forever. Meisvei, the Gemara is a question. Story with Rabbi Eliezer. He goes into shul. He doesn't find that there's a minyan. Finds only 9 people, not a minyan.
No.
And in brachas it says, he freed a slave, so you have a minyan. The Gemara explains mitzvah shiny. If it's a mitzvah, that's different. Okay, now is this a question on back on Abaya? Because for a mitzvah, we would set the slave free. That's clear. Abaya was saying that because they're promiscuous, they wouldn't set them free. Shouldn't that be just like a mitzvah? Because he had another solution. I'm sorry, Daniel.
I would ask for a man mitzvahs per rule.
For a man, yeah, but a slave doesn't have the mitzvah for a revul. So it's only because he needed a minyan.
But if you free him, then he'll have the mitzvah.
Yeah, but you don't have to create the chiyuv. He's freeing him only because he needed a minyan. Yeah.
You can't free him on the mash.
It doesn't work like that. We had something like that once they're free. You can't. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a big discussion here. Yeah, very nice. Hillel is mentioning a rabbinic kreskas. That discusses davening with the minyan. Davening with the minyan is rabbinic, and freeing a slave is a biblical prohibition. So how could you free the slave in order to fulfill a rabbinic? Man, how does he answer that question? So it's a famous question. It's a famous question. You have 2 approaches to this. One approach would be that davening with the minyan is the fulfillment of a biblical command. Another approach is freeing a slave is really only rabbinic. That's your option. And with some, you're going to have to play with it a little bit. You know, one of them is going to have to give.
Yeah, how is not freeing a slave biblical mitzvah? Like, does it say in the Torah, don't free a slave?
Yeah, it says Lo'ilam b'em ta'avaidu. They should serve you forever.
Oh, okay.
So that means that when you set them free, you're violating that positive command of having them work for you forever. So we're only going to do that. We're only going to set them free in order to perform the mitzvah. The famous tshuva from one of the, I forget, maybe an Ida Yehuda, someone was discussing if you have a goylem, can you count the goylem for a minyan? So they brought a proof from this Gemara, maybe it was a Chamtzvi or something, brought a proof from this Gemara that obviously not. Obviously you can't count the goylem for a minyan. A goylem is a man that's made with Kabbalistic, thing. Yeah, AI, a robot. So, yeah. No, it wasn't a Jewish slave. It was a non-Jewish slave. They set him free. When he goes free, he becomes Jewish automatically. When you set a non-Jewish slave free, he becomes a Jew. No, a non-Jewish slave doesn't fulfill all the mitzvahs. A Jewish slave is a Jew. He for sure fulfills all the mitzvahs. Well, he has certain limitations, but he doesn't. he has to. There is a regular Jew. He has to wear tefillin. He has to do a regular Jewish slave. Now we're talking about he's a non-Jewish slave. He's a non-Jewish slave. That when a non-Jewish slave is set free, while he's a slave, he's obligated in all the mitzvahs that a woman would be obligated. When he's set free, he becomes a full Jew. Becomes a full Jew, then he can be counted for a minyan. Eved Kanani. Saying Eved Kanani. Now, so they bring a proof that you can't count the goylem for a minyan, because why did Rabbi Elazar need to set his slave free? He could have made a goylem. Okay. Taner Rabbanan. Starting in the Bryce, they have to serve you forever. Rishus. Rabbi Shmuel says that's not an actual mitzvah. That's just telling you that you're allowed to have them work for you forever. Rabbi Shmuel has a chiddush. Says even though the mother was a Canaanite, and you weren't supposed to let them live, but because the father was not a Canaanite, you follow the father's lineage when it comes to non-Jews. So you're allowed to let them live, and they could work for you. Rabbi Kiva says no, it's an obligation that you're not allowed to set them free. B'dilma Rabbi Elazar Savla Kamanda Marushos. What are you bringing a raya, a proof that you're allowed to set them free? If there's a mitzvah, maybe Rabbi Elazar followed Rabbi Yishmael. Gemara says Leisal Kadaita. Don't think like that. The Tani Behedia. We have actually a clear brayso. So Rabbi Elazar Mechaver. Rabbi Elazar actually says himself that it's an obligation that they have to work for you. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Bahani Tlas Mili Nachti Balibati Minachsein. There's 3 reasons. For these 3 reasons, Balabatim, they lose their money. They go down from their wealth. Doesn't mean that they. It sounds like they become poor. Although I know some wealthy people that would say they go from $1 billion to 999. Nachti, they go down. Okay. The Mafki Abdul Chirusa. They first one is that they set their slaves free. They should not. It's a violation. The Sayer Nechsaya b'Shabbat, they walk around their property on Shabbos to see what needs to be done. Of course, they're not going to do it on Shabbos, but they just take a look, like what they would need. Or the Kavi said the Sayer b'Shabbat to be in Bei Midrasha, and then they have a Kiddush club in the middle of the drasha. They make their meal at the time when they're supposed to be learning. There were 2 families in Yerushalayim. One of them had their meal on Shabbos, one of them the meal on Erev Shabbos. Both of them were uprooted. Sounds like they lost their wealth. Now, what was the problem with Erev Shabbos and Shabbos? Erev Shabbos means that they had their big meal Friday night. The big meal is supposed to be Shabbos day. They had their challah Friday night instead of Shabbos. That's why we have challah Shabbos day, because it says covered yom is greater than covered laila. So we have the herring, the kishka, all the good stuff. They have Shabbos day. Shabbos day is supposed to be the bigger meal. Kiddush, with the Gemara Psachim. Kiddush Friday night is more important than Shabbos day. But the covered of what's the fancier foods, that's Shabbos day. What they were planning on doing, according to Rashi, they were planning on doing is they wanted to have a small meal Shabbos day. They should be able to go to the drasha, quick meal, cereal and milk. And it turns out that was a mistake. They were supposed to have a bigger meal by day. There's another pshat that they ate on Erev Shabbos, a big meal, and they weren't supposed to do that. You're supposed to go into Shabbos a little bit hungry. You're not supposed to have your big meal Friday. Okay, Amar Rav, Hamak Teshavdai. Should I get started? Should I get started on this?
What was the point of that story?
That was amongst the 3 things that you don't do, that people lose their money. One of them was setting a slave free. We're talking about setting a slave free. There was another one also about eating during the drasha, So let's discuss that, the drasha. Okay, I guess we'll leave it over here by Amar Rabbah. Okay, have a good day, everyone.
And you want to move to 2,000.
On Sunday, you can go.
Okay,
and-
thank you very much.
Well, how long they
I know,
are.
it's crazy. It's crazy hard. Okay,
Okay, thank you. Mirza Hashem tomorrow, Eretz Yisrael.
yeah.